like to welcome our speakers for today, Mrs. Siham Hosseini, Mr. Oktavio Kوليز, Mr. Stephen Rosato, Mr. Giacomo D'Angelo, and Julia Baloch. Go over just a small overview of every speaker we have today, and then we can start with the questions. Mrs. Siham Hosseini is the Managing Director for e-publishing in the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi. She supervises the Booker Award along with the Jusur project, which has translated 100 titles from different languages, such as Korean, German, in addition to English. Mr. Octavio Kوليز is an Argentinian digital publisher. He's an UNESCO expert on topics related to cultural diversity, digital creativity, artificial intelligence, entrepreneur, and philosopher. He is the author of the acclaimed report, Digital Publishing and Developing Countries, that was delivered in Spanish, French, English, and Chinese in 2011. Mr. Stephen Rosato is a business development executive and the general manager of OverDrive Professional Business Unit. OverDrive is the largest digital distribution company in the world for library, academic, and school markets, serving 47,000 institutions in more than 80 countries. Mr. Giacomo D'Angelo is the CEO of StreetLab, an Italian-based global gateway distribution platform for the 21st century publishing industry, currently managing more than 400,000 items between ebooks, audiobooks, digital comics, print on demand, and podcasts. Mrs. Julia Baloch became a literary. She specializes in fiction and children's books until 2000. Since then, she oversees the rights and licensing department at the Ueberreuter Verlag GmbH. I would like to welcome everybody again. Let's start with Mrs. Siham. Ms. Siham, do you have? Would you like to start with an opening note, and maybe you can talk to us more about the Department of Culture and Tourism initiative in this pandemic? Also, what are you doing exactly in order to spread knowledge and publishing books?
So first of all, thank you, Salah, and I would like to welcome our guests for today, Stephen, Octavio, Giacomo, Julia, and you definitely, moderator of today's session. It is our pleasure to have you in this session today, where we will discuss the importance of shifting digital. Our world is changing. We have bright days and dark ones. And today we are experiencing the unfamiliar, unknown part, which gives us the whole world, the opportunity to rediscover to rediscover what truly defines us and connect us and also unites us. We've seen during this pandemic the importance of shifting digitally and how ebooks are one of the main sources available to read, to entertain, in the absence, and also to educate, in the absence of the physical books. As per a recent statistic that I read, ebooks witnessed a 10% increase of demand in this lockdown. So in today's session, we aim to highlight our roles to step forward with the ebooks and focus on the e-content as a publisher, as a rights and licensing specialists, platform owners and distributors, and also international organization with publishing interests. So once again, I would like to welcome all of you, and hopefully we will enjoy our discussion for today. And regarding the second part of your question about DCT, Department of Culture and Tourism Abu Dhabi, we are in order to support institutions and students moving to remote learning, we are offering some of our resources and e-content freely for a period of few months. So currently, we are also having a new partnership with a new platform to increase number of platforms that host DCT titles. And recently also, we launched a storytelling initiative for kids' book series. And we're working in a couple of initiatives as well, coming soon and to be launched soon in the near future. Back to you, Salah.
Despite the deadly disadvantages of Corona, there's some feeling of unity has risen between mankind as a whole. Can this be a new window for multicultural exchange of books? And how can UNESCO really push this further, please?
Well, thank you, Salah. Thanks to the organizers for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And yes, I think in the current crisis, the Corona crisis, well, what we are witnessing is, of course, it's a very serious situation, but also we are finding amazing solidarity initiatives in the book industry. For example, I'm seeing more and more in Argentina, but also in other places as well, people becoming patrons of bookstores, like supporting bookstores by buying books in advance, for example. I work, as you said in my introduction, I work as a digital publisher, and also I am an external expert at UNESCO within the framework of the 2005 convention. This is the Convention on the Protection and the Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. It's a very, very important instrument, this convention. It highlights especially the dual nature of cultural goods and services. And books play a key role in the cultural landscape because of the dual nature they have. They have an economic nature, but also they convey values, they have symbols, meaning, etc. And at the current moment, I think we should work in two directions. First, we should support as much as we can the bookstore ecosystem, so the old world, so to speak. We cannot let that world to die because it's in real danger, as we all know. Bookstores, book distributors, libraries, although the physical world. And on the other hand, we should support and promote as much as possible the emerging digital ecosystem of reading, writing, and publishing. There is a myriad of startups and digital publishers working with new technologies, new business models, and we should do as much as we can to support them. So, as I mentioned, the title of the convention, of the UNESCO convention, is protecting and promoting. I think this is what we should do, all of us now, protecting the analog world, bookstores, and the whole book ecosystem, and promoting the new emerging digital world. So we cannot just keep one of the two sectors. We need to work with both. And it's true that the COVID crisis has accelerated the migration between the analog to the digital. And as Seham said before, we will start witnessing new types of experiments, and it's a whole new world. So I think these are the two directions we should work, protecting and promoting.
Okay. Stephen, how are public libraries and academic institutions, how are they able to support their communities during lockdowns? And is there any statistics maybe you can share with us?
Sure. OverDrive was lucky in that we've always been very scalable, and for people who are just everyday users, they probably wouldn't be familiar with the OverDrive name. We provide the background, whether it is like the Abu Dhabi library or Sharjah Public Library uses OverDrive. So they would see their local library as the platform they get. But they've had to scale up really very fast to be able to meet a surge in demand. One of the things that OverDrive has in place that we launched about 1.5 years ago is called the Instant Digital Card. It's been a very successful program, but based on people's cell phone numbers, they, instead of having to physically go to the library or do anything else, they could just use their cell phone, plug it in, and it works with technology that uses like credit card verification. And then based on the authentication that the libraries give us, we're able to match up to it. And if they, live within the district or whatever it may be, they're able to instantly get a digital card. It literally takes less than a minute to happen. So where that has been a successful program over the last 1.5 years, and we've rolled it out in a number of libraries, we saw more use for that product in the first month of the COVID crisis than we did in the previous 18 months. It was just off the charts, but it was a godsend for libraries because they had no way of, they were closed. They didn't have anyone in their physical locations to be able to handle these. So it was something that worked very well. The most urgent need for libraries, though, has been able to quickly move and make things available digitally. I have to give credit to a lot of the publishers that OverDrive works with that stepped up and did some very specific things to, one, discount prices for libraries, and also, as Oktavio mentioned, opted into these additional sales models. I don't want to get too jargony. There's a sales model that we use called cost per circulation, which just means the library may offer many titles. They don't pay for them unless a patron borrows them, and it's a very reduced rate at every time, instead of having to invest in a whole collection. And publishers like Pottermore made a few of their Harry Potter titles available through OverDrive for free, and they've now extended it for a second month, and we've seen extraordinary use of that. So what that does is help the libraries fill the need without having to invest a lot more money back into their collections, and it gets people exposed to the library and gets used to the digital checkouts. So a lot of credit to the publishers, and we were fortunate to have many of these things already in place that we were able to scale very quickly for the libraries. I do have some statistics just over the last very recent boost. It was about 30% increase in digital checkouts just in the first week alone, and specifically for children's and YA, where you see those kids where parents are trying to work perhaps and keep them entertained, have been up between 65 and 75%. So we're seeing a lot of like the Harry Potter and like picture books and things like that. It's been a huge challenge in the US, I've seen, in the K through 12 market. So elementary school through high school. We normally probably get maybe 50 to 100 inbound inquiries for the OverDrive platform on a normal week. It has been averaging 1,500 a week. People are trying to provide digital access for reading content for their students. And OverDrive was able to provide, thanks to the publishers again, who stepped up and made titles available for free access so they could use it and keep their education going. And I have, a college student and a high school student here at home that are finishing their school years from their bedrooms and online. And we're fortunate in that we have good Wi-Fi access and the materials, but that's the other key for libraries. They have to be able to make it available both online and offline, because yes, they could download the books, but then they don't always have the bandwidth to be able to access them the whole time. So these are the challenges the libraries are dealing with, and it is stepping up to meet that. They're very focused on it, and it's hopefully, as you said, there's an opportunity here for people to sort of reset what their priorities are and be engaged in reading, be engaged in family again, and like some really good values that everybody appreciates.
Interesting. Thank you, Stephen. Giacomo, okay. Hi, Giacomo.
Hi, Salah.
Hi. Street Lab is really a very novel idea. It solves many of the publishers' self-publishing problems. But in a world where the middleman seems to be cut off, your company stands as an exception. So what is really unique about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for the organizer for inviting me and for this lovely session. So back to your question, Salah. So we at StreetLib provide a cloud publishing platform that serves self-publishers or indie authors, but also small presses and medium or big corporate publishers from many different countries of the world. And we try our best to provide not only a global and very wide distribution service throughout a network of more than 50 retail partners, library networks, and subscription services, but we also provide marketing and editorial services, sales statistics that the publishers can access throughout a single dashboard, web dashboard, or a mobile app. And in general, we provide additional services to help publishers to thrive in this new global interconnected digital world, digital publishing world. And we believe this is kind of unique in its balancing and meeting the needs of both the industry professional and the book loving consumers. We try to encourage and assist publishers to adopt an hybrid model that empowers consumers with choice. So on the one side, as Oktavio were saying, traditional printed books that can be available throughout brick and mortar bookstores. But on the other side, and more, digital books, but also digital audiobooks, but also podcasts, but also digital comics, and so on and so forth, and those that can be instantly downloaded and read or listened to at any time of day or night by anyone and anywhere with a smartphone. So, we believe that this is a kind of a great deal for authors, publishers, and consumers alike.
Nice. So probably you do you post your material on OverDrive? So you do.
For sure.
Yes, they have a very large and robust catalog that we appreciate.
Thank you, Stephen.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, Giacomo. Thank you. Julia. Hi, Julia. You became okay. Publishers are having tough times these days because most bookstores are either closed or the customer traffic is very low. Please, can you inform us, how is your company able to cope with these exceptional times?
So I have to start because first of all, hello and thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be on this conference. Yes, as you know, the speaking countries, there are some differences. So we had the bookstores. Most of the bookstores were closed from the middle of March until middle of April, end of April, around about. But you had, for example, in Germany, some regions where the bookstores were still open for the whole time, just with limited closing hours. And the last day before the lockdown, there was a kind of hamster purchase among, especially on the children's book sector. So yes, you had a lot of the sales went down, but on the children's book sector, it went the best because the parents, as you said before, yes, they needed something to entertain their children at home, and that's why it still went very well, and it went over to they bought the books during the lockdown, mostly online. They ordered them, so the physical books, and for us, yes, and there was a difference also between Germany and Austria. In Austria, also the children's book sales went very badly. I guess perhaps it's that because the Austrians are not so used to buy online than the Germans, perhaps it could be a reason. Yes, and yes, in general, the children's book sector still sells well. So, and during this time, we had a lot of contact, or a lot of teachers contacted us with a question if they could use the book online in YouTube or to distribute it to their pupils online. And that's it's a big chance for us to expand our network to teachers, which are very important, who are very important for us. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's a positive part of these hard times that yes, books or children's books became more important again.
Sure. Interesting. I have a question, please, Julia. Now, the distributor for books, probably it was still working even in lockdowns, isn't it? Because they had to secure the orders for the bookstores, or maybe ship them to the customers, isn't it?
Yeah. So just before the lockdown, the orders from the bookstores were quite normal. But now, in these times when they reopen, we feel it that they are now sending back a lot of books, what they have ordered. But the booksellers became very creative even during the lockdown. How to deliver the books to their customers. They had networks like by bicycle and delivered it to their main customers. So some of the booksellers were very creative and had good connections to their customers, and in the end they had also good sales of the books. But yes, of course, the sales went down a lot, so they have to send back a lot of books, and we will see it later on how many books, how many copies they have sent back. Now we will see, but now it's okay.
Thank you, Julia. This is exactly what happened. What you said, this is exactly what happened even in the Middle East. Thank you. Oktavio. If we compare today between the market share of ebooks versus printed books between the first world countries and developing countries, how much do you think is the division, please?
Well, in general, you know that when we talk about the first world or global north region, developed countries, usually we would say that ebooks make up 20% or even more of total book sales. This is especially in the UK or in the US. In continental Europe, it's lower, Italy, France, Germany. And if you go to Latin America, Africa, Middle East, India, it's even lower. If you see the statistics, you will find that in some countries, ebooks are just 1% or less of the total book sales. However, this doesn't mean that people are not reading ebooks and other digital publications. And actually, I think there is a big problem with statistics in our developing countries, because and I would say there are three big problems. And these problems related to statistics make it very difficult to understand the ebook phenomenon in our regions. And the three problems are that, first of all, self-publishing. We don't measure accurately how many authors are self-publishing. Suppose we have an Argentinian author who is publishing with KDP, with Kindle, an ebook with Kindle. So that ebook won't be counted in the Argentinian statistics. In the national statistics for culture, that digital content will not be counted. It will have an American ISBN provided by Amazon. So, but it was produced by an Argentinian author or by an Argentinian publisher. Second problem in the statistics in the field of ebooks is the informal market, or illegal downloads or piracy, you name it. Digital reading is booming in our regions, but nobody knows how much it represents in terms of the market, because piracy is huge. I know many people very in their 70s or 80s who know how to pirate books, ebooks. And this is not entering in national statistics. And finally, the third problem is that there are new types of digital publications, especially in India and China, that are not being counted as ebooks, but they should. And why? Because in general, I would say that the very concept of ebook is a very Western one. So it's book plus e. So I take a paper book, a printed book, and then I digitize it, or whatever method you want to use, and then I will get a file. So that's an ebook. This is how in the West we think of ebooks, but it's not how in the East they think. And this is another reason why phenomena like, China literature owned by Tencent and many other applications are not used and not taken into account in when we try to consider the ebook market share in developing countries. So I would say that digital reading and digital publishing and digital writing is huge, but there is no simple way to measure it right now in the global South.
Just backing you up a little bit on the self-publishing, I was going to say, in the U.S. traditionally,
please go ahead.
For traditional publishing, the number of titles on an annual basis was always somewhere around 100 to 110,000. And the last I saw, probably in the last maybe 2 years, just self-publishing alone is producing more than 200,000 titles a year in the U.S. So if you compare that to professional publishing, so that it's almost more than doubling that. And you're right, it is very fuzzy how that enters the market and how it's being counted. And part of it is Amazon is very protective about their statistics, even for publishers that they are doing business with, to get their own accurate numbers. It is a challenge to sort of measure it, justify it, and there's a lot of data that's in there that could help publishers to know where their content is being sold, how it's being consumed, that is being missed, that you can make some strategic decisions on.
Thank you, Stephen. Oktavio, please, do you think that the issue of piracy today, especially in the digital publishing, is the main factor that is preventing sales from increasing? Is this the main factor?
I would say, from my experience as a digital publisher, piracy is a consequence. It's a symptom. And generally, it's a consequence of a market failure. So it's a customer that is not reaching the product he or she wants at the price they need to pay. So, of course, there is a whole business around piracy. I'm not saying that there are people that need to go to a legal process and to be sued. But the student, the old person that is downloading a PDF because they don't know how to get the legal version, and they would pay for that. But the content sometimes is not even available. Many publishers are still not delivering electronic versions of their books. Or something that I saw, especially in Europe, where I lived for a couple of years in France, is that publishers, when they launch a printed version, they sell it, let's say, at 15 euros, and the ebook version is sold at 14 euros, which is too much for a digital version. So nobody is willing to pay that price. Of course, it's their right to sell it at the price they choose. But at some point, there is some kind of failure in the market, in the business model, that makes that many people are willing to read, but are not willing to pay that price. And if you see in the music industry, which came much earlier in the digital field, it was only when companies and platforms changed the business model that they were able to make money out of digital music. So instead of selling the CD, the entire CD in one file, they started to sell tracks with Apple, and then subscription models like Spotify. So it's a question, piracy, I think, is just a symptom. And I'm not saying that many people should be sued. I'm just saying as a phenomenon, it's a kind of market failure.
I just want to comment on that. I think what is the most interesting is the piracy is mostly occurring from print. They are taking the spines off of print and scanning them to create the PDFs, which is easy and cheap to do and anyone could do. But if you look at whether it is Google or Apple or Kindle or OverDrive, if your content in those environments is very secure. If they are participating with a proper digital format, it should be an EPUB, which could be read across any device. That is very secure content. That is not what's being pirated. And I do think publishers globally think of, once it's digital, it's going to be easier to be taken, but it's being stolen, it's being pirated digitally from the print.
True.
Yeah, if I can add a comment on that, another problem that I see is that, most ebooks nowadays, that are coming out of those big platforms, big Western platforms, have been priced with the US price or European price. Okay, so what happens is that even if those global platforms are accessible, are making those books accessible on a global scale, from countries like, the Asian countries or the Middle East or the African countries, those books most of the times have very high prices, which makes them not accessible for those people, and that's when piracy happens. So I cannot agree more with what my colleagues said before, that piracy is just a consequence of a market failure. But in that case, in this point in time, I don't see much attention of those global platform on helping publishers setting up the right price for their books, with a truly global outlook.
Thank you, Giacomo.
But we do it also that the ebook is when the book comes out. We publish the ebook and the printed book at the same time, and the difference between the price difference between the ebook and the printed book is just €1 or something like that, because we want to sell the printed books, and if the gap is too big between ebook and the difference is too big, then we will just sell. We are afraid that we will just sell the ebook and not the printed book. But after a while, we often make some sales actions and something like that, and then the price is the half of the ebook price will be the half, or you can do it like you have some for a week or something like that, and you can a lot play with the price. You can be very creative with the price, but in Germany and in Austria, for the printed book, the price is fixed for everywhere in bookstores. So they can't change the prices, not only in the ebook sector.
Even for ebooks, it's fixed.
No, for ebooks, not. You can.
Oh, it's not.
You can just say the price, and you can also lower the price for 1 week and say, for this week it's just the half of it, and then
okay.
Yeah. But the reason why when the book just comes out, it's a new edition, then it's important that we sell the printed books too, and that's why the ebook price is quite the same.
Yeah, thank you.
Salah,
Okay,
sorry, Salah, I just want to comment to make a comment here. Well, I cannot agree more with what my colleagues are saying here. So my only note here is, or can we consider that the differences between the pricing, maybe mainly to Oktavio, the differences between the pricing is the only reason for people to pirate books? Because actually we're experienced here, for example, like some of the books are really selling for very low price, but yet people compete and continue on pirating these titles.
Yes, of course, I think there are many factors in play. Price, I would say, is one of the main, but also it's the format they have access to, and so it's not the same if it's a PDF or an EPUB or a fully accessible file. And so price, format, then the type of platform or business models. If it's if you pay once for the copy, or if you are paying for a subscription, that's a third variable. And there may be other factors, but of course, there is a whole work of I don't know how to say, but like education of the market that is also necessary. This is also evident, and I agree that price only won't change things, but it's necessary to work on both ends, like publishers and ebook sellers should work very hard in finding the right pricing, knowing that if they find the right price, they will sell much more. And at the same time, we have to educate the audience, the public, about the value of getting legal content and the advantages of having legal content.
True, Oktavio, and I would like to some people. I've talked to some people. The books are for free. I will never pay 1 cent for a book. So it's like as if it's given to them. It's okay. It's okay for them to take the pirate books as long as it's available. So this is, I think, culture. This is subjectivity. Some people will maybe never buy. There's always piracy. So, anyways, we should. This is another session. Maybe it's piracy. We can make another session, all of it for piracy. So
I can speak to that just a little bit, Salah.
Okay, let's.
It's not so much about piracy, but it's something that OverDrive,
Yes.
and if you're paying attention last year, there's a lot of controversy around Macmillan in the U.S. not making their front list titles available to libraries, and there was a lot of outcry to that. And being very frank, they didn't have any statistics to back up their point of view, feeling that if they were available for free in a library, that they were not going to be purchased on the retail side. And OverDrive had statistics to sort of prove otherwise, where it is a means of discovery. So looking at libraries as, free access to books, we've created this nonprofit called Project Panorama, where it is actually working with Penguin Random House, it's working with Ingram and a bunch of stakeholders in the industry, but also working with Bookscan to see retail sales and compare what library sales are. So it's not only just the front list books and backlist books. And we're finding that libraries where they're getting free access to books, the more that they have access to books, the more that they will buy those books. So we have a ton of data that supports it. And OverDrive does this program every year called the Big Library Read. And a publisher volunteers, they make their title available for free for 2 weeks to any library that wants to opt in. And typically that's about half of our libraries do that. And we have seen data from Amazon, bestseller lists, that when these titles are available for free, libraries end up buying copies, but then we see the retail sales go up as well. So there is having access to books, promoting the books, and we're competing with television and Netflix and a lot of other things for eyeballs, as they say. So piracy is not the only issue. It is just, you know, prioritizing reading and making it available, as I think Oktavio is alluding to. Is just having it available and where people want it is what's going to be the key to having people buy more books.
True. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, we can continue. Okay, Stephen, what do you think? Okay, OverDrive has an extensive catalog for digital repositories. What are the main genres that you have, and what are mostly in demand?
Well, OverDrive started, I mean, with libraries, and we've over time expanded through, you know, the K through 12 academic libraries. So our point of entry has always been general trade reading. So we see probably more children's and popular fiction and nonfiction that's read, but increasingly, and especially through COVID and our work with universities, we're seeing a huge surge in academic content. And that is being the likes of Taylor and Francis or Springer. So it really depends on the institution and the audience they're trying to serve. OverDrive's catalog has, I think, close to 4 million titles from 30,000 publishers. So it's pretty, we have everything. What sells and circulates the most is what you would, just like anything else, it's popular reading.
Mm-hmm. Do you do self-publishing also?
Yes, we partner with, it's interesting because we try and sort of put a little bit of a filter on that to make sure it's just not, you know, it's more like not like a fire hose, as they say, where everything comes at it. So we work with like Smashwords, and StreetLib has a lot of self-published authors, and they filter it based on, you know, whether it's sales statistics or reviews and some other format. So we're not getting flooded with those titles, but we absolutely sell a ton and have a lot of interest in self-published authors. So it, just like anything else, it's about the quality.
Sure. Interesting. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, Giacomo, can you share with us some usage statistics of pre-corona and post-corona? How is the usage?
Yes, of course. You know, I'm from Italy, and Italy, unfortunately, was the first European country hit by the virus, you know, outside China. And, you know, while we usually, as a company, have a very global outlook, you know, we decided, you know, a few months ago to focus action in our home market, you know, and to do our best to support our domestic publishing community, which has been heavily affected. You know, starting from late March and definitely for the entire month of April, we saw a big shift, and we onboarded a lot of new publishers in our platform. You know, as the crisis began, most of the publishers, not only in Italy, I would say, you know, were still not seriously embracing digital books. As you know, Oktavio were saying before, you know, the digital books. So the digital reading is skyrocketing in my view, all over the world. But still, digital publishers are still you know, relying on physical and traditional publishing. You know, still, unfortunately, in my opinion. So when it comes to back to our, you know, statistics, you know, we started assisting publishers converting more and more books from physical to digital in March. We also tried to help them out with the actual work of digitize their books, and we registered a more than 30% increase in terms of onboarding numbers in our platform in March and April. We try to be as fast as possible to convert those numbers in sales numbers, because, you know, we are, you know, we kind of participate in the success of our publishers. You know, we work in revenue share with them. And as of today, we are seeing digital revenue from the catalog, the entire catalog of our partners, of our publishers, up more than 50% compared to the pre-pandemic period. And so this is digital revenue. But in terms of digital downloads, we saw a jump of 90% plus across the board, for all our publishers' catalog in March and April 2020. So this is one thing, but not only are publishers rushing to digitize their catalog more and more, in our opinion, we see them also, starting to evolve their internal workflow in order to become leaner and faster, and this will benefit not only their bottom line, but also the consumers at the end of the day.
Yes, thank you. Do you think that this increase will continue even post-corona?
Yeah, that's the 1 million question that everybody, has in their mind. So I do believe that we are gonna, land into a new normal, as they say, after the crisis, because people will be accustomed to the digital books, and to convenience of having to deal with digital books, the fact that they can carry them around, or that they can access, as many digital books as possible without, the traditional issues of having, available only the books that the bookstore can accommodate in the shelves, for instance, So those are things that will become part of the, of the reader experience, and this is not gonna go away, in my opinion. At the same time, it's of course, the traditional print books will be around. I'm sure that publishers after the crisis will come back stronger than before, and because books are such a huge and powerful object. But I'm really optimistic about the outlook of the digital publishing going forward, both for digital books and also for digital audiobooks, as they are both a great tool, to access content at any hour of the day or night from anywhere in the world, just with a smartphone.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Julia, please, can you give us an insight about the percentage of sales in print versus ebooks, online sales versus bookstore sales for printed books? So just an idea, please.
Yeah, so our program has books for children from 3 up to 14, up to young adult. So and we start producing ebook from 6 years old, books for children from 6 years. Not the illustrated books as an ebooks does not make sense, because reading aloud, when the parents like to read aloud from a physical book and not from an ebook. So that's why, and the sales are very low in the children's book sector. Just in the from young adult 12 plus, up from 12 plus, it continues to be the sales are more and more in the ebook sector, and even now it became more and more during the Corona crisis, the sales of the young adult books in the ebook sector. But I think in general, even in for young adult books, we sell between 10 and 15% of the whole sales are ebooks, and not more. Yes. So yes, but I think it's the future. And now, as I also said, we for teachers and for schools, we make a lot of sales actions. So promotions when we lower the prices, and then of course the sales. We have more sales than after such promotions, ebook promotions. Yeah. But I think it's the future.
You know, this you were saying that the parents would prefer the printed book to read. The thing we noticed in the Arab world that unfortunately some parents they don't have the real knowledge. They're reading wrongly for their children. So there is demand for ebooks to have audio and to be listened to by children because their parents are reading wrongly for them. So it's interesting.
That's a sort of a format that we call read-alongs, where it is the EPUB is synced with an audio track, and we can never get enough of those. They sell really, really well, and they tend to sell for a higher price point because it's a higher production cost on those. But it's very popular. It's especially for like language learning and for children.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I can imagine.
In Germany, I think the tradition to read aloud from a picture book, from an illustrated book, and to spend time with your child is still very strong. So if you have an ebook, an illustrated book as an ebook and audiobook at the same time, so you don't need the parent anymore. It's not time together with the children, and yes, but the audio sector is becoming very strong. That's true, and we have new mediums also, which is, for example, very popular now. That you have a box. You have a box.
Yeah.
It's called the Tony box. I don't know if you already heard about it. And you put on the figure on the you stick the figure on the box, and then you have the audiobook. The child can listen to the story of this figure. It's a kind of mix between merchandising and audiobook. So that became very successful, and
it's not augmented reality, huh?
Yeah, kind of, because you have the figure of the hero of the book, who is already very known by among the children. For example, who's Mickey Mouse, and then you have stories of Mickey Mouse you can listen to. So, and yeah, that's kind of a toy. You have a toy and you have an audiobook and everything. Yes, it's kind of enhanced physical toy, ebook, book content. Yeah.
I know that augmented reality is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be very difficult when you talk to publishers. Even sometimes it's very difficult to afford to do audio, because to do a full novel and a name, for the production value where there might be some sound effects or something like that, it could be $10,000 or $20,000. And I have talked to companies that do these augmented reality, and for a single story, it might be $50,000 or $60,000. It is using special effects that they would use on like a Hollywood movie. So the scale at this point is just, it can't happen, because publishers You know, they're anywhere from, you know, a small publisher might do 50 new titles in a year, or you know, 25, but a major publisher, they just don't have those kind of resources to support the volume of titles.
Yeah, that's why animated, illustrated, or picture books until now didn't work very well, because the production is so expensive, and then yes, it's the same problem. The parents say they are very conservative, and they say no. Either we have a book and read aloud for the child, or we give a game. The child can play a game online or on the iPad.
But on an audio book, it costs like $1 million. I read this somewhere.
I believe that cost. Just and some of the ones I've explored, the price points for single titles were just there's no fit in OverDrive. There's no library that could afford, you know, the cost, what they would need to break even on these titles. So it's crazy. But maybe with artificial intelligence, that process becomes simpler and more economical. That might change things, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Sure. Yeah, correct. Please. Okay, so this is for the question is the same for everybody. We all learned from this lockdown, and things will change forever. After we get back to our normal life, what do you think are the future holds for the development of ebooks?
Shall I start?
I'll start with Oktavio, please.
Oh, okay. Well, it's clear that all the digital trends have accelerated, and the world, the post-COVID-19 world, will be much more digital than the previous one. You know, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, 5G will be more and more present in our lives. So it's inevitable that digital will occupy a larger space, and with this, ebooks will grow. That's for sure, and in general, digital publications. Now, my concern has to do with the concentration of the market, mainly, because we will see that there will be much more content available, so we will have maybe the illusion of diversity, a lot of like millions and millions of ebooks flooding the market, either coming from self-published authors or publishing houses. But who will make the most out of this new situation? I don't think it will be small publishers or medium-sized companies. It will be probably the large internet platforms. So just a handful of those big tech players will probably end up controlling the whole market of the ebooks, unless we react quickly. And I am not sure if that's the attitude of most publishers right now. So I would pay a lot of attention not just to the format, the amount of content available for the readers, but also to who will rule the new ebook market in the post-COVID world.
Just to piggyback on that, I think, well, as you say, but content, as they say, is king, because it is still largely controlled by the publishers. And as long as publishers retain that control, and some of them have tried to have their own platforms, and it's difficult because then when schools or libraries need to access someone else, they can't, you know, they can't subscribe to 400 different publishers to get the 400 different titles. So that is, I think, one thing to sort of protect the market, as you know, as long as authors are being paid and distribution is being handled. But the need is just going to accelerate, particularly for students to be able to access stuff remotely. And they're just going to get used to it and do it and be able to have that access so they can continue learning. I see it with my own kids at home right now. having access to the materials that they need is absolutely critical. And I think this fall in the US is going to be a very big shift, where they're telling kids, like, don't go to college, these seniors right now, because you're going to be going remote, and they're telling them to take a gap year. And I think many of the universities in the US are very scared right now of what is coming this fall for them, where they, you know, some of these top tier universities had always been very selective. How do they differentiate themselves from someone who's going to have to learn from their bedroom? These are a lot of challenges up there. And one thing I'll just throw out there, it's a very open-ended question. And I've read a lot about open access materials where it's free access to students. And I've read for years that this is the next big thing. I just haven't seen it take root, because you need publishers to support it with quality content. Some community colleges have embraced it, but there still has to be revenue behind it, because then if no one is making money off it, there's no one is going to be able to create it.
No. Do you mean ad-based? Is it ad-based or?
No, it's open access resources where some of them have tried to do subscription sort of models. They will charge on a sort of per student like access fee, but there are entire curriculums that are being put together, whether it is an accounting curriculum or a math curriculum, and it's both at the high school level and the college level, where it's free. I have not seen it take off as yet, but it is something that has been percolating for the last few years.
Giacomo?
Yeah, I just want to add that I'm much more optimistic about this than Oktavio, actually, because my job at StreetLib is actually to go out and find all the entrepreneurs looking for new opportunities for publishers, in many different niches all around the world. And I find a new one every single week. There are subscription platforms nowadays popping up in every corner of the world. And for every new venture, there is a new opportunity for a truly digital publisher, to find a specific audience, which can be a new audience. So I really don't believe that the digital publishing is on the end of these, huge, conglomerates, technological platform like, Amazon or Google or Apple. I really, and this is also why I'm doing what I'm doing at StreetLib, because I'm not only distributing our books, our publishers' books on Amazon, but also on other 50 or even more, additional retail platforms out there. And, if you think about that, the latest Kindle store opened was like more than 5 years ago, okay? And after that, Amazon didn't open a new Kindle store whatsoever. And I don't have any evidence that they will do that, anytime soon. And the same goes for Google and for Apple. Those Google and Apple, they have more than 50, localized bookstores, around the world. But most of them are just placeholders. They are not actively working on that. They did that because they had to do that, but they have no interest on fulfilling all the needs, all the reading needs, which are growing and growing and growing. So I see a huge demand for digital books, and as more local platforms or local entrepreneurs will find a new way to make those digital books accessible to local communities, there will be more opportunities for a digital publisher who really understand how this world will evolve. And part of our job is to make this easier for publishers. We are building a truly global, distribution platform, and so we are building the next step of the digital infrastructure that help digital publishers to find, all those opportunities around the world, because we may the hard job of connecting all these retailers, subscription platforms, and so on. You know, in China there are so many like mobile reading platforms. You know, like mentioned before, like China Literature, but also Dangdang, but also Steri. But you know, there are many, and you know, we try to connect them all and make them available to digital publishers. You know, because there is a huge gap. You know, and so. And I see this happening more and more. So I'm really optimistic about you know, the outcomes here.
Yeah. Especially, you know, by next year, I think the 5G would be released. So your iPhone would be really a very powerful device. You will be able to download maybe 100 titles in seconds.
Exactly.
So I think. Yes, the environment, the infrastructure will be really excellent in the coming years. Okay.
Also, and this is going to happen. This is going to happen also in the emerging markets. You know, there are like submarine cables that are, you know, going to be in place like around Africa or you know, through the ocean, and so you know, the penetration of you know, the internet availability, but also the smartphone penetration, you know, will rise very fast in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and if you think about that, also in those emerging markets like Africa or you know, even Middle East, the average age of people is much lower than here in the West, you know. So that's why I see a very, I mean, I really believe that, you know, there has never been a better, you know, period in time in history to be a digital publisher than today.
Thank you. Thank you. Julia, would you like to comment? Question, please.
So as I already said, yes, after the Corona crisis, I think everything online we will continue, and we now during this crisis we see how important it is to use all the to have the internet and to can download content in every way. So yes, I'm sure that the ebook market and every audio market will continue and will become stronger and stronger. That's the future, of course. And yet now the Corona crisis, I think it's kind of yeah, it becomes faster and faster. So it's yes.
You know, I think this era of Corona, it might have given us a push, because sometimes there's human resistance that human beings are resistant in their nature. So they wouldn't do anything except if they are really forced to. So maybe this era has given us a push like 10 years to the future, so that people will really accommodate all of this technology. So it's interesting times, really.
Yeah, of course. In every sector.
Sure. Sure.
I think we see it's not so important always to travel, to make business trips. So we can also deal it online, but yes, but the personal contact is important too. So I think the fairs, for example, the book fairs are still very important, and they will be important in the future too. So you can't deal everything online. No?
Yes, sure. Okay, I think we finished the question. Siham, should we add anything?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm more into Giacomo part, being optimistic for the next phase. So hopefully that, see, it's a lesson learned at the end. It's a learning step after what we face all in the whole world. So I guess this is a lesson for the traditional publishers who were at the beginning like resisting the idea of digital transformation, especially some of the big publishers around the world. So this is I'm optimistic from that part. So hopefully in the next future that we will be seeing their content available on an e-format. So this is from the good side or positive side. But I also agreed with Oktavio and Stephen and also Julia regarding this is a challenging time. So we are all shifting digitally and yet competing and having more initiatives, more projects that highlight the digitalization. So we need to determine and control what kind of content is good and can really benefit our children and our societies in the future.
So I would like to thank the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi for thank you, Siham. Thank you, Abdurrahman. Thank you, Stephen, Oktavio, Giacomo, and
thank you.
speakers.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate what a nice group, and this has been very enjoyable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Good evening to everyone, or good afternoon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.